This is the Fundamental Escape Podcast with your host, Mark Fitzgerald. I'm David Werba, and this is episode 5. So, Mark, we have Gavin McInnes, who's a writer, director, actor, and co-founder of Vice Media. He also has his own podcast series, which is called the Free Speech Podcast. I don't know where to begin with Gavin. I mean, my first impression after listening to the interview was that he's like a ornery curmudgeon that tries to make his points with comedy, but it doesn't always work. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yes, I as people will find out when they listen, I was definitely the recipient of his very straightforward and blunt approach to communication, which I don't necessarily see as a bad thing, so please don't get offended on my behalf.
No, I mean, he's a jokester. He's a comedian, obviously. Sometimes he's funny, in my opinion, but he also gets pretty dark, and he gets pretty offensive, and it's time to hide the women and children when you listen to the discussion that you guys had. Well, maybe at least the children, because...
Yeah, let's not... in the spirit of his ideology, I wouldn't... let's not get sexist here.
I know a lot of people call him a racist, too, and it's... I'm not sure about that. I've listened through a few times. I'm not sure if I would call him racist. Definitely has a lot of offensive remarks, but he also likes to rib people. I've watched some other interviews that he did online, and he's kind of a dictator. He likes to take control of a discussion. It's not really a discussion, actually, when you look at it. It's more of, him talking and the other person trying to get a few points in. And yeah, I mean, is that pretty much it?
Well, I guess maybe just to add a couple more things. As you said, fair warning to anyone, there is a little bit of language in this episode. We could have beeped it out, but, it would have left not much content. But, I mean, it's not for the faint of heart, but at the same time, I do encourage people to take the time to, to listen and to hear. I mean, as I said to Gavin in the episode, in a world where people are not allowed to say certain things, Gavin is the kind of person that says the thing. And it's important to me. I genuinely think, I mean, if you can get past being offended and actually listen to some of his points, he does make some interesting points at the end of the day,
Yeah, he's also kind of a bully. He has like a bully mentality at times, but yeah, he does, like, some of the stuff he said towards you, I think he may have been trying to help you out. I don't know. He's kind of making fun of you a few times, which I didn't like that personally, but, maybe the message underneath is pure. But as long as there's, some ribbing going on, I think he kind of looks like a mix between Stephen Baldwin and Zach Galifianakis. And maybe like an illegitimate son, not...
I don't know, maybe it was karma, but there was one point in the conversation where he was actually choking on cheese as well.
Yeah, there's some strange moments, to say the least. So let's just get to it. Here is the interview with Gavin McInnes.
Hey everyone, I'm here with Gavin McInnes. So Gavin, you seem to be quite active on YouTube and have become popular on various media channels online.
No, I'm sort of like as popular as an Elvis impersonator would be. You know how he probably has his little scene, and when he does his shows in his local town, people come see and they go, ah, ha, 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 it looks exactly like Elvis. And then he goes to Vegas a couple times a year, or maybe he even performs in Vegas on Elvis festivals, and he's on Elvis podcasts and gets interviewed by the local Elvis fanatics. That's sort of my status now in my old age. I used to be pretty popular and influential, though.
Yeah, do you maybe want to talk about being the co-founder of Vice magazine? We aren't really too familiar with that down here in New Zealand.
Oh, no, I don't have anything to do with Vice. I co-founded Vibe magazine. My name's Gavin McInnes. I played Captain Stubing on a show, The Love Boat, for many years. I was in the band Bush. I sang for Bush for a while. And then, started Vibe, and we just focused on, R&B and hip-hop and black culture. I'm a 30th African-American, and identify as black. And I left them recently because they have a strange standard at Vibe and in that community where light-skinned blacks like me are seen as less authentic than the real sort of black as coal, like the ones that look like an eggplant. They are seen as much more credible. So like Kevin Hart would get a lot more credit than one of the Cosby kids. And that just got on my nerves after a while. So I quit and I started a band that was a kids band. And it was mostly, very sexual songs like Prince, like early Prince, like Darling Nikki, but for kids. And that didn't do great. There are a lot of angry moms and a lot of the media, said that was offensive and they wanted to take it down. And so since then I've been living on food stamps and just trying to get by. I applied today for my license to drive the handicapped around. I don't know if you see these handicap vans, but they have a dollar sign and it says, training, we pay. And it's minimum wage. But, eventually if you get really good at it, if you will, you could fit maybe 10 gimps in one van because you don't bring their chairs. And a lot of them have these skinny pipe cleaner legs like Kermit the Frog. So you fold those up or you can even coil them up like a fire hose. And you can fit maybe 30 in one thing if you add bunks. So I'm optimistic that each trip I take with these handicapped people could be 30 grand.
Nice. I like your optimism.
Yeah, they'll look like a bag of popcorn in there.
Fantastic. Okay, where to go from here? All right. I suppose I wanted to talk a little bit about where I came across you, which was through a friend of mine who sent me some of your videos on YouTube. And
I came across you when I was looking at people who pick gnats out of their hair.
Yeah. Yes.
Did you get a juicy one?
No. Yeah. No, there's certainly not much about me online at this stage in my life, I guess. But I was starting to become empathetic towards the ideas of feminism. And my friend sent me some clips of you talking about feminism. And you pretty quickly gave me some alternative ideas to ponder, I have to say.
Well, I guess the short version of that whole debate is, what rights don't they have? And it definitely has had validity in the past. Women wanted the right to vote. They wanted the right to be seen as intellectuals, to get an education. And even up until the 60s and 70s, they wanted the possibility of not being in the kitchen. But now, the pendulum has swung so far the other way that you're a loser if you stay in the kitchen and if you adhere to your biological instincts, and it's not helped women at all. It's made them miserable. It's sort of like, say you said Irish people don't have to be drunks, and you got them all onto AA plans, and no Irish people ever drank whiskey again. You'd have a lot of unhappy Irishmen.
Yeah.
Going, what have I done here? Now, Irish people should have the right to not drink booze, but the truth is the Scotch-Irish have a predilection to alcohol, and we thoroughly enjoy it. In fact, I'm going to pour myself a drink right now.
Yeah. We both have Irish descent, by the way.
Yeah, it's an inevitable trait. You got to watch us though on this stuff. Like Nixon said, I've never seen an Irishman who didn't get mean when he was drunk, particularly the real Irish. And it's true. And the Scots are the worst of the Irish in a sense. It's the same DNA, but it's the ones that couldn't get along in Ireland.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I guess it's sort of interesting to me, whether it be feminism or, there's any number of topics you could bring up, but whenever sort of a perceived group has the perception of being oppressed, once they come out of that or get, a grounding sort of thing, immediately there seems to be this counter reaction where they suddenly gun after the group that has oppressed them in their eyes, I suppose you could say, Well,
it's like there's an oppression industry, and it's like the government, right? If a government starts a valid institution, like say it was the Equal Rights for Blacks institution in 1950, and they started out saying blacks and whites should both shouldn't have separate drinking fountains. That's ridiculous. And that is ridiculous. So after a while, they get that. And they get tons of money, and they're very successful, and now there's no such thing as black and white fountains. What are they going to do now? Close up shop? No. They're going to keep going and finding new grievances. And you see this even with the gay community now. You have drag queens that are not invited to gay pride parades because they might offend trans. It's like, say there was this unjust...
Wow.
Yeah. Say there was this unjust fence that was prohibiting someone from getting to their own property. You get a steamroller and you go, I'm going to knock down this fence. You start the steamroller, it goes down, it knocks the fence down, and then you go, all right, we're done. And the steamroller goes, no, we're not. And it just keeps going and knocking down other fences and bulldozing homes and just creating this freeway of intolerance. And we see that with the feminist movement. They have run out of problems, so now it's catcalling. And you go, wait a minute, if you include prison, men get raped more than women. They die earlier. They're more likely to commit suicide. They're more likely to experience violence at work. They're more likely to be assaulted at night on the street. There's no metric where we're worse off. And you're magic. So shut the fuck up, bitch.
Yeah.
But just starting it up, you know what I want to talk about? I can't help but notice your large breasts, speaking of women. And
I'm going to turn my video off now.
I've been obsessed with fat people recently because...
Okay, let's talk about that.
It seems like a slow form of suicide. Like, I watched a fat man die at a comedy club about 2 weeks ago. We talked about this on my show last night. And there's a Reddit. If you check the TGMS, the Gavin McInnes live episode 10, the Reddit conversation for it, they show his name and his pornos and stuff. Anyway, this guy, he was a comedian, and he was about 50 pounds fatter than you, and he said that he porked Goldie Hawn because Kurt Russell told him to in the 80s. And I believe him, because I think back then there was so much coke and partying that it was a cool thing to have a porn star boff your wife. I'm using euphemisms because my kids might be listening. And he had a panic attack after he bombed, and I think it gave him a heart attack. And he unbuttoned his pants, and the paramedics came down, but they couldn't get him up the stairs to the ambulance. And me and this comic, Dave Smith, were drinking beer watching him, and I realize now watching him die. And we were cracking jokes and saying, he kept saying, get my oxygen mask off. He was being kind of a dick about dying, which I understand. And then we did our show, and we come back, and his brother's there, and he goes, that was my brother. Did you see what happened? We told him the story, and he goes, that was my brother. He died. And I felt the way I feel when junkies die. It's not like when a kid gets run over by a car. You sort of feel this, you knew what was going to happen. Yeah, and you fat guys, you get these warnings, every 10 minutes. Like, say I had a tumor or a big sort of growth on my ankle, and it hurt when I put my shoe on. I would go, I have to take care of that. That's an issue. But I went to school with this kid we all hung out with named Fat Peter, and he would do this thing. I don't know if you're fat enough, but to get up from a couch, he would have to shimmy to the edge like that, and then get to the edge, and then he would put his heels under his ass, and then he would sort of rock the top half, and then use this sort of momentum to go, yeah, and then he'd almost be falling forward, and then he'd catch himself. Now, surely, when that is the only way you can get up, you go, I'm dying. Yeah. We're all mad about cops, and the biggest numbers I've heard of cops killing people is 1,000 a year, and that includes all the ones that deserve to die because they were coming at them with a knife. Obesity in America is 500,000 people a year.
Yeah.
And not Fox News won't even talk about it because it's so much of their audience, they don't want to offend anyone. Yeah. But are you trying to kill yourself?
I've never thought about it in those explicit terms, no. But I completely take your point. I mean, I completely understand where you're coming from.
I mean, your mortality rate...
What's that?
Your mortality rate is brutal. People of your size, they're lucky to make it to 60.
Yeah. What were you drinking again, by the way?
Maker's Mark?
There's lots of ways we can kill ourselves, was my point.
Oh, come on. There isn't a Scot on earth who doesn't drink whiskey every night? And
Hey,
and it's funny you bring that up because the biggest problem with Glaswegians is fried food. That's why they're all dying so early.
oh wow. Yeah.
I
Speaking
mean,
of
it's pretty hard to die of cirrhosis. You
yeah.
got to really to get to the gin blossoms level. You really got to hammer the shit down.
Speaking of things like Fox News, I did see one particular clip. Was it Sean Hannity had you on, and there was a woman sitting next to you, and you made some comments about women being happier at home, and she was not very happy with you making those comments.
Yeah, liberals don't understand the difference between general and universal. And I got a letter to my site recently that illuminated that for me pretty clearly. I hadn't really thought about it before. But you'll say to a liberal, most women would be happier at home. And they go, what about me? I'm here on Fox News. And you go, well, I know you, and we've argued about this many times on Hannity's radio show, and I know you would be happier with a man. It's all you fucking talk about. And that's why you've had plastic surgery and probably have fake tits, because you're trying to youngify yourself to make you appealing to a man. But secondly, even if you were the exception to the rule and you were happier doing this kind of work and not being a mom, that doesn't mean my point is wrong. The general term, and I believe it's like 95%, but the general biology is most women would be happier at home shaping lives than doing their stupid, shitty jobs. Like, the jobs that they're defending are always these sort of clipboard planning schedule jobs like line producing. It's no life shaping. So the general truth is this, and then they assume you're making a universal rule. And then they assume that, so if they find an exception to that, then you're wrong. No, dummy. I'm saying Scotch-Irish tend to drink whiskey. Oh, really? My grandfather was Scotch-Irish. He never had a drop in his life. Yeah, that doesn't dispute my general observation. You're assuming I'm making a universal observation.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And it just comes up with liberals again. I even saw it with a commercial. There was a commercial here in America where a woman is holding up some form. It's not a Simpsons comic, but it's a form. And she goes, so you said women are worse drivers than men? And he goes, and she goes, then why did I just get this? A discount on my car insurance for driving well. And you're watching the commercial going, because you don't represent most women drivers who are terrible?
Yeah.
Why? You think you just instantly refute mountains of data because you went against the grain? It's there's so much basic fallacies we learn in high school, like ad hominem and logical fallacies and straw mans and general versus universal. You go, like, were you paying attention in high school? They go, oh, you know what you just said? David Duke says the same thing. And you go, yeah, all cats are mammals, all dogs are mammals, all cats are not dogs. Weren't you listening in grade 10?
Yeah. I kind of wanted to get into that a little bit because there was a quote I've heard you say, I'm not sure where it comes from, where you say when people are confronted with data that counters what they already believe, they get more steadfast in their current belief system, sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that wasn't a colloquialism so much as a study that came out a few years ago. Jim Goad wrote about it on Tacky Mag, and it's a startling discovery. And it makes you realize that a lot of this politics and philosophy is just sports. And you have your team, the Dallas Cowboys. And if you say something bad about the Dallas Cowboys, they'll say something bad about the Steelers without thinking about what you said about the Dallas Cowboys. And I've noticed this, like with my mother-in-law, I'll say something about Clinton and his infidelities, and she'll say, oh yeah, what about George W. Bush and his cocaine use? And I'm sort of like, yeah, fuck George W. Bush. I don't give a shit. What am I going to stand and defend his cocaine use or his academic career? That's not my job. And Breitbart was really good at that. He was just so happy to be alive. It's ironic that he's dead. But his thing was just, let's hash it out. And if I lose, I lose. I want to be wrong. Yeah. I'd love to be wrong. And, my buddy Dante Nero, this black comedian, just sent me this long video about how corrupt the police are in Baltimore. And it's from the Young Turks. And I fucking hate those guys. But I'm going to have to buckle up and watch it and, accept if I'm wrong and accept that maybe there is a war on blacks coming from cops. I think the real war on blacks is from black gang members and welfare, but let's hear the other side,
Yeah. Here's what I like about you, Gavin, and I'm not trying to stroke your ego, but it's just the truth. Like, in a world where people seem to not be allowed to say certain things anymore, you say the thing. Like, you say these things that, people, you just like, you're not supposed to say that, and you just come out and say it. And it's just like, you even said it to me about being fat, which I kind of feel weirdly proud of. But not proud of being fat, but proud that you said it to me. I was insulted by Gavin McInnes. But it's...
I didn't insult you. If I was going to insult you, what is that, a 555 Soul shirt?
Maybe. I don't know.
Or it's like a bad rip-off of a 555 Soul shirt. You're wearing 90s streetwear. That's
I've never been into image or fashion, personally, but...
Yeah, that's clear. Well, I can't brag about being brave enough to say these things. It's more like Tourette's. I can't not say it, and I've tried it many times. My wife doesn't enjoy confrontation, and she doesn't enjoy me getting fired all the time. But eventually, you get to a place where, inevitably, you have bosses that don't care. And now I've got Taki Theodorakopoulos, Anthony Cumia, and Ezra Levant are my new bosses, and they have all been persecuted for the things they say, and they know what it's like, and they love the truth. And we're obviously the future. We're obviously going to get this PC thing. Can't last. It's on fumes already. I mean, they're trying to ban the word bossy.
I know. I saw that. I went to that website. I had a look. It was just so absurd. It was like, is this a real thing? Like, are people actually doing this? Like,
I mean, throw a dart at the dartboard. Today, my buddy posted a picture on Instagram of Waddy from The Exploited. Now, they were a punk band in the 80s from Scotland, and their only ethos, the only thing they cared about was anarchy and chaos. And they didn't even like anarchists who had a plan, like Crass. Waddy would get on stage and he'd go, "Don't you say Crass? They're a bunch of fucking wankers. They don't believe in anarchy and chaos. I believe in anarchy. Let's see all pogo." That song is directed at Crass at the beginning, at least for the live recording, because Crass had a sort of idea of a commune and the way it would work without capitalism and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, couldn't be less political in that sense. I mean, they're pure anarchists in that they just don't even care if it is good for the world or bad for the world. They just don't want any rules. And look him up, and he's got some racist attack. Johnny Rotten was accused of racism by a Block Party. Talk to your friend. Like, go on your phone, click your most recent calls, talk to him. He'll have a thing. My buddy Trace, he's taking my kid tomorrow to some sort of fitness class, parkour, dance thing, whatever, gymnastics thing, because I have to work, and I want to keep my kids happy on the weekend. And I'm just picking him out of the sky because he is my most recent call. And he was tweeting for his buddies in the Long Branch Inn. And during the World Cup, Mexico was playing some stupid country like Brazil. Now, if you have to choose a team as an American, you're going to choose Mexico because we've got 15 million of them. So now that's our guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if it was you, you'd choose Australia no matter how much you hate them if they were playing America.
Yeah, right. That's a good example.
Because they're closest.
Yeah.
And so he tweeted out, "We're all wetbacks now." And wetback is not a particularly insult. It's not nigger. It's like redneck. It's got a sense of endearment to it. And that blew up. The owner of the Long Branch Inn is no longer speaking to him. They canceled the account. I mean, he didn't lose any work because it was just him fucking with his buddy's restaurant's account. But it was total, like, his brother didn't speak to him for months. I mean, I bet your mom has had a serious issue once.
Yeah.
Has she? What's your mom's name?
Lynette.
Has Lynette ever been accused of racism where there was some sort of scandal where she had violated some rule and everyone was mad at her?
Not that comes directly to mind, but I can definitely ask her about that.
Well, she was Hitler for Halloween one year. That was awkward. Her nickname is the Ilse the Shewolf of New Zealand. That's certainly got to cause some controversy.
Oh, fantastic. My mum's a good sport. She'll love this, by the way.
Racist.
You're totally... You're totally throwing off. I'm supposed to be guiding this conversation, by the way. You're completely hijacking this.
You know what I'm wearing right now? Trifocals.
What are trifocals?
The top is long distance for driving. The middle is absolutely nothing. And then the bottom is for reading. So if I look through the very bottom, you become crystal clear. And then that's normal, and then that's blurry.
Yeah. But either way, I'm fat either way, so...
Yes, you have large breasts, no matter what I do. You know what men do now?
What's that?
I was at a water park this weekend. Men in America wear water shirts because they're embarrassed of their body.
Oh, right. Yeah. No,
So I'm at an indoor water park, and men, not even as fat as you, like as fat as me, are wearing these scuba shirts and little scuba shoes.
It's all fashion. So
fucking annoying. Okay.
Here's a question. Here's something I was going to...
Let's just power through your questions.
No. One of the questions I was curious to ask you was, in relation to the views that you sort of hold now, was there sort of any point, like a transition sort of point, like where your views have changed in your life kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I read The Death of the West in around 2001 by Pat Buchanan. And it was just such an incredible book. It was like a cold shower. And I highly recommend people check it out. Wow. It just really changed my perspective on the world. And I realized that in this, almost like biological imperative to rebel, we were wiping out tradition with nothing to replace it. And you see that with gay marriage. Like they go... We hate that you have this rule that we can't do it. Okay, so what do you have? Oh, we have gay marriage. It doesn't involve kids. It doesn't involve monogamy, really. We're not really going to be faithful. And we're probably going to get divorced soon. I don't know what the fuck it means. I'm not really good at this. It's sort of like someone grabs the bullhorn at a party and goes, hello, everyone. Okay, turn the music off. Hey, okay, I need to be heard. All right, what do you got? Does anyone see my cigarettes? I had cigarettes around here. What's going on with you? What's your name? And you're going, why did you just shut down the party?
Yeah.
And then that same year, 9/11 happened. And I think Anthony Cumia and Pamela Geller are exactly the same way with this, where they went, oh, wait a minute. These innocuous groups that are up to trouble that we ignore in the past and just go, whatever, Looney Town. They can actually assemble accrue power and become a real threat to my way of life. So all of a sudden we stopped laughing at these assholes and started saying, what exactly are you up to? And now, when like there's a whole rape thing on college campuses where they say 1 in 4 men will or 1 in 4 women will be sexually assaulted. I've heard numbers as high as 1 in 2. Normally, the old me in 1999 would go, what a bunch of crazy uptight cunts, and move on with my day. Now I go, wait a minute, you're ruining men's lives based on a lie, based on this new definition of rape that includes drunk sex or sex you regretted later. I don't want that world. I'm going to stop you. It's sort of like when you see someone butting in line at Disneyland. My dad, and I think this is a Scottish trait, my dad saw these 2 13-year-old girls butt in line 4 lines away from us, and he grabbed them and he pulled them to the end of the line, and they weren't even in our particular ticket line. And I remember thinking, that's a really cool thing that he did. He's so ethical that he has to rip the strangers out of a line 4 lines away. So it could be genetic that I'm obsessed with this, but it could be the death of the West, 9/11, and also having kids. I don't want my son's life ruined by a lie. I mean, there was a woman recently who complained about a student who looked like someone who raped her. And he had to curb his behavior on campus and not take certain classes based on this insane assumption. So all of a sudden, I want to get involved in these things and say, no, we're not. Oh my God, is that your mom? Do you live with your mom?
No.
Do you have a huge pile of questions?
No, not at all. I'm
just saying, if you do, we could do like a power.
No. One of the biggest things I was sort of keen to open up, I guess, was the idea of like the nature of belief and how we like it seems to me that we have this world now where there's this almost ethereal belief system where like people believe these things because that's what you're supposed to believe, kind of thing. Like I listened to you talking to, I think it was Jesse Ventura, and you brought up the subject of abortion, for example, and he immediately, like, are you okay there?
Yeah, I ate a piece of cheese and went down the wrong tube. No, I know what you're going to say, though, and you're right. It is.
He just regurgitated this bullshit back to you.
It's a woman's choice, and we're a nation of immigrants, and slavery is bad. And
but it seemed to me that his response was like, it was almost like you just pressed a button and just got a response. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there was no connection. It was like we have these beliefs that, and it's like the whole trivializing of rape kind of thing, where people are saying, well, like men wolf whistling at a woman is equivalent to rape. Well, no, it's not. First of all, and second of all, you're completely diminishing your own cause by trivializing this word. Like, you know.
Yeah, that's the irony of all this too. With these silly games, is they end up hurting the people they purport to help. When you say 1 in 4 women have been raped in college, and you include uncomfortable sex, then when we hear a woman say, hey, I got home last night and I was raped, we now include all that bullshit in the definition. Meanwhile, someone wearing a ski mask jumped out from behind a dumpster, held a knife to her throat, ripped her skirt to shreds, and invaded her as she had blood running down her leg. And we're going, well, was he drunk, or did you regret it later? Or that's who should be really mad about Mattress Girl, is these real victims of rape. And it applies to racism and, virtually everything.
Yeah.
When you say that when you talk about microaggressions and some black dude has been dragged behind a truck by the KKK, by some white redneck, and you go, I was a victim of a racial hate crime, and you go, oh, did someone ask an Asian person if they have a calculator? And you go, no, a black guy got shot in the head for dating a white girl. You go, oh, you said racist. I mean, I thought it was someone wore an African shirt, or someone wore an American flag shirt on Cinco de Mayo. So these assholes have totally diluted bona fide cases of racism and sexism and homophobia and whatever, transphobia.
Yeah.
But the reason they spout these platitudes is their heart's not in it. And there's these fun little litmus tests you can do, like with immigration. You say, when people talk about immigration, you go, how many illegals are there in the country? And they'll occasionally be 100 million off. And you go, wait a minute, you've never looked this up. And you go, why am I arguing with someone who's never looked it up? Because you don't genuinely give a shit. If you're talking about abortion and you say it's a woman's choice, you are running on the fumes of a platitude because you don't fucking care. Like, someone who cares would want to get into the nuances of the first trimester. Like, when can we talk? Like the day after pill or 2 months? That's someone who's genuinely into this terrible phenomenon of fucking killing babies. But the ones who just go, it's a woman's choice. What if her father raped her? Really? How many fathers have impregnated their daughters? I looked it up. I found one. And he was black.
Yeah.
That's my sort of slam dunk checkmate.
I mean, what can you say? I mean, I'm also curious as well, like in these sort of conversations you have, like, you have these debates, like, I mean, you only sort of see bits and pieces on like these Sean Hannity and stuff like that. Do you ever have like genuinely decent conversations with people that you disagree with, or does it always?
Oh yeah, conservatives. Yeah. I don't argue with liberals anymore because they haven't done their research. But I like to talk to someone like John. I don't think America should be abroad. I don't like the idea of Americans fighting in the Middle East. I don't understand why we have troops in Italy. And so I talked to John Bolton about that, who's a hawkish neocon who wants America meddling in everyone's business. And that's a fascinating discussion because he says things like, I say, why are there troops in Italy, for crying out loud? And he goes, oh, it's a matter of strategic. Is it cost effective? I mean, Benghazi is close to Italy. Those troops could have been down to the embassy to protect the embassy during that siege. Would you rather them fly from Washington or Florida or whatever was the closest coastal base? I went, oh shit, that's a good point. I never thought of that. Or he says, it's about a deterrent. It's the value of the American dollar is based on our strength. When people see us stationed all over the world, they're more confident in the American dollar. They're more confident in the American economy. Oh yeah, that's an interesting angle on it. Okay, I never thought of that. But when you talk to liberals, they'll say things like the earth matters. And you go, yeah, I know, I'm standing on it right now. Can we go beyond that? So the thing people don't get about Fox News is they think it's all these, pundits saying horrible racist things and horrible right-wing things to get rich. It's actually political nerds. And it's not unusual to see Lou Dobbs and Ann Coulter in the hallway having an argument about tax, or John Stossel fighting with someone. Everyone is always, the green rooms and the hallways are full of people talking about stuff like they're at a Star Wars convention arguing about the new movie.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I mean, today's liberals are just really like comedians and actors and artists and rappers going, I'm just going to take these platitudes and go, mean people suck. And you go, that's nice. I'd rather get into whether Pinochet should have privatized copper and whether Milton Friedman was wrong to go there and tell them to support the free market. Was he a Pinochet sympathizer, or was he helping an evil dictator make his country better? You know what I mean? I like the details, and liberals don't know the details because they don't really care. They just want to feel good about themselves.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I'm, you'd be obviously, you know who Russell Brand is, obviously, comedian.
I fucked him.
Fair enough. It's
with a strap on, though. I didn't want to use my actual dick.
But yeah, like I, to be honest, I don't really watch much of him lately. But I got into his sort of news. He does a YouTube sort of channel, talking about different bits and pieces around the on the news and stuff. But I think I tend to agree with you. The whole the way the liberal agenda is, it's almost just like catchphrases, and like you say, it's just like
he's a platitude pundit where he'll say, isn't it more like we're talking about people who have religious belief trying to get through the day? Don't you understand that people in Palestine are being oppressed? They're just trying to survive. They're fucking human beings, all right? They love their children. When their baby's born, they want to hold that child and kiss it, just like you. And you are calling them human garbage. And you go, yeah. How many missiles were launched against Israel? How many tunnels are there? Where was Palestine? You want to know the details of the maps and the population and all this other stuff. Like you talk to someone like Charles Krauthammer, and he knows the numbers, or Lou Dobbs with immigration, or Ann Coulter with immigration. These people know the numbers. Jared Taylor when it comes to race. They all have done their research, and it's fun to talk to them. Like I said to Jared and Steve Saylor once, we go, okay, the bell curve is seen as the most disgusting thing in the world. It's a chart of race and IQ, and it goes Asians, whites in the middle, blacks. And so the what are they called? The platitude pundits just go, oh, so black people are garbage. And you go, no, actually, it's three bell-shaped curves where there's massive amounts of overlap. So there are massive amounts of blacks smarter than Asians, and there's massive amounts of whites dumber than blacks. And I said to Steve Seller, he's a mathematician, I go, can you run the numbers? And the numbers were shocking to the racist people, or considered racist people I know. And they went, holy shit. I can't remember the exact number. It was like 700,000. Hundreds of thousands of blacks smarter than hundreds of thousands of Asians in America. And that is relevant because what the bell curve was saying was when you meet an individual on an individual basis, you don't know who you're talking to. These are general patterns. They're not universal patterns. So if you're applying for, if someone applies for a job as top mathematician at your economics firm, and it's a black guy, you'd have to be a fucking retarded lunatic to go, no thank you, you're black. No one would do that. That's a mythical scenario. The guy would go, he's allowed to be surprised, by the way. If the guy comes in and he has a do-rag on and it's sideways, he looks like Method Man. And he comes in and he goes, I'd like to apply for this. The guy might go, okay. And then he does a few tests and he reads the resume and he goes, okay, what's 3x plus y cubed spun about the z-axis? What do you mean, what is? Sorry, the surface area. Okay, well, you would use calculus and find the derivative. And he just goes and solves it in 3 pages. And the guy goes, holy fuck, you're awesome. You're hired, buddy. He doesn't go,
Yeah.
No, thank you. I don't care that you're one of the greatest mathematicians of all time. You're a Negro. If the opposite would happen, they'd go, would you mind if we put your desk by the window so everyone would see you when they walk by the National Math Institute? It would be really good for our brand.
Oh, fantastic. I guess just to, I don't want to keep you up too long, but just to wrap up, I suppose, I mean, we've talked a bit of politics, which admittedly I feel a bit out of my depth personally, but religion is obviously the other...
Right out of your depth?
What's that? My depth.
What's a depth?
D-E-P-T-H.
Well, why'd you call it depth?
Don't even start getting into my accent.
You know, the Canadian accent is the truest to the language, much more than American.
Okay, anyway.
Look at the actual letters. The Canadian accent is more phonetic than any other accent.
Totally hijacking this conversation again.
Yeah. We say the letters for everything.
Yeah.
Centrifugal.
Gavin.
How do you say centrifugal? Centrifugal?
You just gave me 2 options of saying a word I never use.
Okay, an astronaut's going round and around.
Centrifugal.
His cheeks are going to the side. What's the force pushing his face like this?
Centrifugal.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, as I was saying, I did read somewhere along the way about the idea or the fact that...
Somewhere along the way. I like you with a little bindle, like a hobbit, wandering through New Zealand,
my little shire.
reading things along the way with a little corn pipe, going into a little straw hut once in a while to have some stew and eat tea with a wizard.
Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah, I read on the internet, I think it was your Wikipedia page, that said you were an atheist most of your life, but when you had kids, you started believing in God.
Yeah.
Okay, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
That's a lame question, by the way.
Well, I mean...
Matthew?
Mark,
why
is it a lame question?
In the future, I've interviewed a lot of people.
Okay.
You never say, can you elaborate on that or tell us a little bit about that?
Okay.
You need to have an actual question, or else you're just saying, here's a concept, I haven't thought it through.
Okay. Let me take 2.
Can you do my job for me?
It's interesting to me.
Can you take over my show?
Yeah, just after complaining that's what you were doing. I'm learning a lot here. This is fantastic. All right. No, it's okay. Let me preface
the biggest thing. No.
Let me
get laid. If you want to get laid, stop eating. And the easiest thing in the world is losing weight.
Okay,
you just have to stop doing
Gavin,
something.
Shut up! We're not going back to that. Seriously, you can. Okay.
It's like if someone told me if you use less pillows, you can get laid more. I'd go get these pillows out of my house. I'll have a cramped neck in the morning, no problem.
Okay, the reason this is interesting to me, I'll preface the question or what I was trying to say. I grew up personally very religious. I grew up Christian, right? So I grew up going to church all my life. And this is part of what I'm doing with this podcast is, I'm interested in talking to people about their beliefs and how they transition into other beliefs and things like that, and how that works. Like, going back to the quote I referenced where you say, about people being confronted with alternative data, it's to me, it seems like it's the same idea when it comes to religion. Like, nobody wakes up one day and goes, oh, I used to believe X, now I'm going to believe Y based on this data that's been handed to me. Like, for me, I grew up very fundamentalist, very black and white. And I, without going into tons of detail, had some, like traumatic, I guess, things happen in my life that kind of disrupted where I was heading. And
Did you get raped?
No, I did not get raped. No, that did not happen. But trust you to say that. I wouldn't expect anything less from you. So
you might get raped.
Yeah, okay.
Walk around with those nice big tits.
Okay. Gavin, you're starting to scare me a little bit, I'll be honest.
I gotta admit, if I saw you clucking down the street at 3 a.m. with high heel shoes on,
okay, let's just wind this. Let's just wrap this up because this is going downhill.
No, I'm sorry. I know what you're saying.
No. I'm just curious as to like
politics has become a religion, and that is why I used the sports analogy earlier with the Dallas Cowboys, but it really is a religion in that it's a faith. And when you say I have a point against your team, then they say, how dare you question the Messiah, Obama. Politics is reality. We are really being taxed. They're really taking our guns away. We're really being censored. Religion is spirituality. It's what will happen when you die? I don't know. And I find a lot of Christians like you who were steeped in it in youth grew this very sort of acerbic cynicism because they had these priests who would say things like, your pets are going to go with you when you die. I can't defend that. I'm new to this shit. But I think what those priests were doing was trying to say, look, just stay on board and we'll deal with the intellectual shit when you're older and ready to handle it. Your pets do not come with you, okay? Whether your friends will be there or not is not, our brains aren't capable of understanding that. What it's going to be is not angels with harps sitting on clouds. It's not explainable. So a lot of guys I find your age who grew up with Christianity have this resentment for the myths they got as kids. But the myths were just sort of saying, can you please just stay on board? Because the real shit is you'd have to basically take acid and lie on a mountaintop and stare at a sunset to be able to wrap a third of your head around a billionth of it. And that's where I'm at with it. I think it's a very personal thing. I mean, the analogy I keep using is my wife is an American Indian. I think she's part of the Native American church. I don't know what her religious beliefs are. She doesn't talk about them. I see her waving sage around when we move to a new place. If someone dies in her tribe, she'll be at a teepee for 3 days doing peyote. That's never discussed. She doesn't have views about abortion. It doesn't link to dinosaurs or anything like that, or creationism. So I thought she actually made me Christian in a sense, because I thought, why can't I have that? Why do I have to be on trial and discuss every detail of the Bible and defend every page? Why can't it be more ethereal and just recognize that we're right next, like we're in New York, we're right next to a Central Park that's infinite. The universe is infinite. And it had an explosion that no one can explain that created everything from a caterpillar to my son's lung working perfectly. And we're just going to sit here and say that's chance. As Ben Carson said, we're just going to accept that a wind blew through my garage and made a perfect Rolex watch. I'm not willing to accept that. So I know something fishy's going on, and that's about as far as my religion goes. And and people say, like my dad was screaming at me the other night saying, you believe in a bunch of fucking shamans telling you lies. And I go, you've never been to church. It's just people in a giant cathedral in awe that they're here. And they're going, I was going to say Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. How fuck did I get? I mean, Thank you, I guess. Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
What are the odds? I mean, it's as Andrew WK says, it's uncanny that you and I are sitting here. You're in fucking New Zealand. where they make sheep and Maoris beat their wives with facial tattoos. I'm drinking bourbon.
I'm so terrified to put this out into the world.
I'm drinking bourbon, going to work in a few hours with some babysitter coming by, drinking Kentucky bourbon, and here we are having a chat about what is a factual reality-based beliefs and what is some sort of genetic predisposition. I mean, that is weird.
Yeah.
Look at a fucking fly's eye. Why are these atheists so cynical? Anyway, I think the important thing to wrap this up is that we all get away from the sports of it, and we all get away, believe it or not, from the religion of politics. If you want to get into religion and you want to get into faith, that's your personal spiritual belief. And outside of abortion, it doesn't really play out. And I guess gay marriage, if fucking priests are being forced to conduct gay marriages, that is just wrong. But outside of these few exceptions, religion is a private spiritual thing, and the rest of us have to be totally open to politics in the sense that, oh, what's the data you have? What's the study you have? Oh, really? That's what's going on? And I think the general driving sort of spinal cord of the whole thing should be, leave me alone. Jim Goad once said there's two types of people in politics. There's the people who want to be left alone and the people who won't leave them the fuck alone. And the latter are the ones who shaped America and the Western world. And I'd include New Zealand and Australia in the Western world. The people who want to be left the fuck alone created the best culture in the world, Western culture. And we have to stick to that and stop letting these politically correct fucking assholes tell us what to think, because they're the same as Islam. They're insatiable. You give them an inch and they'll take a mile. So we have to tell them to fuck off and keep doing what we're doing.
Sweet. That's a pretty good way to wrap things up, I think.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool, man. Well, cheers for doing this. I appreciate it.